This is Workspaces and People Season 2 already, Amsterdam. We're here to meet Pete, who invited us to his house. Pete was actually with a company called Platform 161 in Amsterdam, and they were, I remember they were one of Blackboard's first clients. I think Antonia acquired them, and Antonia made a contact to meet Pete, so thank you so much in this place. And yeah, we're going to talk about Workspaces, but also about his job his role as a COO of the company, and let's see.
So the first thing we did was take out all the walls in between. This is where the musical heart of Amsterdam is ticking. That's this place, and we're a part of that.
The more free you are to move around, the more creative you get.
Workspaces and People Season 2 here on YouTube.
Kind of stayed in touch, and then a couple of weeks ago, Antonia wrote me like, "Hey, we're coming to Amsterdam." And I think the founder of the company, who wasn't CEO at the time that we got in contact with you, he was very involved in how do we create a workplace where people can be efficient. My personal opinion is that still, are we still creating workplaces nowadays, or is that maybe like physical workplaces? Is that a thing that we still do, or is that actually a thing of the past? But the office that he created was super nice, and if you go to the B building, I would definitely visit it, because it's one of the nicer offices there.
Now I remember that Antonia said that that it's a very nice office to see. Yeah. I remember.
Yeah, it's a cool place. And I left that company a bit over a year ago. Three friends of mine had started a company in the blockchain space, which was of course super overhyped at that time. And they were actually just in the WeWork. They'd got their first seed funding in. And basically they contacted me then and said, "Hey, would you like to come in and run operations for us?" And so they took me in. They immediately adopted me and made me partner in the company as well. And we basically worked up to doing our kind of public funding or token sale, as it's called in the blockchain space, end of March. Which raised 11 million to the company. So it was the biggest kind of public fundraising in the Netherlands using that mechanism. Yeah, it was amazing. It was a really cool ride. Yes. And we grew very rapidly from just the 3-4 people who started until 21 people.
Yeah.
And kind of then this whole thing comes into play with, if you grow so fast, and if you actually need to deliver on a product so fast, how do you create a culture? How do you kind of make that right straight from the beginning? Is workspace important there as well? Which I think we found out it really is, because we were in the WeWork, and I think WeWork is an amazing place if you are like 1 person, 2 persons, up to 4 people. And then it becomes really cramped. And so we felt quite cramped there pretty quickly, and started looking like, okay, what's our next move? And basically we all agreed that, we would like to create an office space still where people feel at home, when they walk into the door, and where they feel creative and where they feel that they can deliver their best work. So we started looking for such a place, and we started building that. And along the way, I kind of came to realize, and I don't know if the video is the best place for that, so you guys need to see what you do with it. But I knew 3 of the 4 people in the company, and with those it worked very well, but with one of them it didn't work so well.
Yeah.
So I decided to kind of offboard from the company, which was mid-November. And since then, I took a few weeks of rest to begin with. Actually, in the first week, I was already talking to a friend of mine and pitched him an idea. And he said, "That sounds absolutely amazing. Why don't you kind of build a business plan around it, come by the office next week and pitch it to me and my partner?" And after the pitch, they said, "Yeah, this sounds really cool. We'd like to fund it." So I'm building that out on the one hand side, and on the other hand side, I'm now doing 2 days a week of freelance work, and it's just for a regular company. I've always been in the operational part of tech companies, which is the same here. And I'm kind of helping them to structure that out. And I've done everything from really the development side until more the business operations side. And this is again more to the development side. So how can they adopt agile methodologies in order to be constant in their delivery?
Okay.
And I think that kind of fits very much hand in hand with the big trend that we see here in the Netherlands when we talk about the future of work at the moment. So you see a lot of, the younger generation that is now coming in. They have multiple jobs, and basically their autonomy is most important to them. They need to feel absolutely autonomous in what they do, and actually a big they feel that way if they are their own entrepreneur and they just take on multiple jobs from other people. I think something that they aren't realizing enough is, okay, what does that mean? Because I'm not building up a pension and all those kind of things, but all the research also show that they no longer believe in that. So we need to, that needs to really change big time.
Well, they live in the moment and not like...
Yeah, definitely. And of course you can when you're 25 up to 35, when until people start children, and then generally they start to gets a bit more serious, like, okay, now I actually need to provide, so maybe this, and either that freelance thing has grown out to something that's sustainable enough, or they then still need to go and find, like, okay, which company am I going to work for, etc. And there you see, I think very different than in Germany, you see a lot of struggle here with people. So they really want to identify very strongly with the companies that they work with. So it's becoming increasingly, like, purpose-driven companies are becoming increasingly popular here in the Netherlands. Like, and they manage to draw a lot of the talent. You still see a pool that goes to the classical larger corporations, which has all the conformity and the hierarchy, because they want to make a career there, and they think they benefit from it if they at least start there, and then they have a lot of opportunities going to these smaller companies as well. But there's a really big group of people that doesn't even start there anymore.
What do you think, because you lived in Berlin for a while, so you quite know that you had a German partner, CEO in the company, so you know how the Germans work, the German market works a little bit. Yeah. What is the main difference? Because setting up this film tour here in Amsterdam, I found that, and I don't know if this is something, but it just crossed my way. In Germany, people would, if I email them and they have my phone number, they would get back on email with me. Whereas here, everyone would get back on WhatsApp with me, which is like amazing. It was so much faster,
it's true.
like shorter, quicker, if more efficient. Like, is that something that you see as well, or like what is the differences? I don't know
per se in terms of. So I think it's a really good question. I have to say I was in Berlin 2007 for a year and a half, so it's a while ago. But
I was in Amsterdam 2009, so that's about the same. It's also 10 years ago.
But my wife's actually half German, so I'm still in Germany quite frequent. I think there's what's the biggest difference also from people that come to the Netherlands and work in the Netherlands is that here, we don't have the Z culture. There's it's becoming increasingly flat. Actually, it's becoming so bad that there are now companies that bring in coaches to teach the young people that there is some kind of hierarchy, so that if their manager addresses them, that they cannot say yo or hey or those kind of things. That's really happening at the moment. But it also means that because it's so flat, people I think adapt these ways of working very quickly. So I was with a company yesterday that threw out Slack because they're now just using Telegram, which is a public chat program where you can also, with all the contacts that you have directly, you can chat with them, but also in the company it's very efficient. And then everyone from the CEO until the office manager is using Telegram. And those things go very fast. Yeah, they're adopted very quickly here. I think it's what I noticed a lot in Germany is it feels like there's a lot of distance between you and the people that are up in the hierarchy, and that generally doesn't really feel that way here. So even though there is a distance, I never really perceived it that way. And I think that makes it more, how do you say, it makes it nicer for everyone, I think. Like I doubt from time to time whether the German people actually like this distance or it's kind of a facade that they pull up. And maybe you can say that, but if you manage to break through it a little bit, or what I always found is that they were forgiving towards me because I wasn't from their culture, and that's something different between Germans and the Dutch, but they're very forgiving towards foreigners, especially if you try to speak their language. I think here in the Netherlands, if you try to speak Dutch, there's no chance. They'll speak to you in English.
Really?
Yeah, directly. Like it's every foreigner that lives here says like, how can you learn this language? It's impossible, because as soon as they hear the slightest accent, they will start speaking in English.
That's probably why I never picked it up more than...
Then hallo, hoe gaat het ermee?
No, I do. I mean, the understanding is one part, the speaking. But of course, I must say that having the possibility to speak English or German, it's kind of...
No, if you speak English and if you would start that way, then I think the Dutch wouldn't even ask whether you speak.
Although
if you speak
this
Dutch.
morning when I lost my bag in the airplane, Marcel can confirm I spoke Dutch with the immigration officer, and he was but maybe he was happy anyway to help.
He didn't switch.
No, he didn't switch.
Okay. Well, I mean, of course, there's always people that have a different preference, but in general, you hear from people like, if you. As soon as they, even in the supermarkets, if they hear that you have an accent, they would address you in English.
Yeah.
But coming back to the point, I think they were forgiving towards me, and I would almost on purpose switch between addressing someone with Sie or with Du, and I found that kind of broke down the barrier as well, which made it more friendly. Also in the business setting. So I worked at Siemens there for half a year. But even there, and especially in Berlin, I think you saw that the younger generation is fed up with it. Like the distance culture, and they're really trying to tear it down as well, in my opinion, and at least a growing group. But yeah, I would say it's quite informal. There's this beautiful book, right? The Culture Map. It's called. And then you can. I mean, they just map every country next to each other, and
Is it from Gerhard Hofstadter or something?
No.
But he was the Dutch
I think so. Yeah, he did a lot of research there, but I think it's a female who actually wrote a book on it. Yeah. But then you can see those, and I find it mind-blowing if we're so close, and then this difference is already so big. Or if you look at the Netherlands and England, which is, there's just a little bit of water in between. Even the Belgians, it's so different. But Germans are very... they were very, but that's not in the business setting, very helpful always towards me. Like they heard I was trying to speak German in school. They would come and they would teach me words. I don't think that would ever happen here. But I wouldn't be able to say what that means for the future of work.
Yeah. Well, but you were talking about hierarchies and, giving up ego and flat structures. And in a way, that's also what crosses our way a lot of times in terms of workplaces. You mentioned it in the beginning of our talk that you don't know, that you're not sure about physical space anymore. Like, what did you mean by that, and what are your thoughts on? I mean, you saw a lot of workspaces, like for small groups, for big groups, for big corporates like Siemens.
I think workspace is increasingly becoming a question of, or work in general, of how productive can you be, right? And it becomes more about measuring output than wanting to see the person that's working for you constantly, right? And that fits hand in hand with what I said before. Like the what you see here is that people want to feel autonomous, like that are working, at least that I've been working with. And if that is part of the question, then I think it also becomes like, if you're measuring output, it increasingly becomes a question of how can people be as productive as they can be? What setting is that? And I think in the end, as a business, you would still always want a place to meet up. But these these shared workspaces are perfect for that, right? And if you look at, I told you about Primal Base before, it's a place where you can rent a desk for a day. Actually, at the moment, the price is 50 cents, which makes no sense because you get free coffee, so they must lose money. But it's an amazing concept because you can rent a desk for a day. So if you're a company of 10, you can rent 10 desks for a day. It will cost you $5. And you can also rent a meeting space there, or you can get a meeting space included in the rent that you have. So if you need a place to meet, and then you don't need any office. And actually, since I left my previous company, I found out that what really makes me productive, a lot more productive than what I've been in the past year, is change of environment. So you have 2 kids, just like I do. This place, when the kids are around, it's not productive to work, and I guess you can relate to that. But today they are at the daycare. I love working at home on the days that they are in daycare. But that's only 2 days a week, so I have 3 days a week that I need to find another place.
Where do you enjoy working? Like, on what does it depend? On the kids and, of course, the surrounding at home?
Sorry, what do I?
Like, where do you enjoy working? Where can you work efficiently, focused, or creative, or whatever you want? Is there different places? I mean, at home is one place.
So I find that here at home I can be very productive, but not when the kids are around. And then for me, environment is super important. So the Primal Base they are on top of the eye lake as well, so you're overlooking the water. The way the place is decorated is super nice. It's another place where you can be productive, but then again, the workspace itself is a huge open space. I find those places in general for me to be less productive. I like a smaller environment, or at least I like to be boxed in a little bit and then have some sort of view that is productive for me.
So what your friend does when she takes people outside in the nature to work, like that's not your thing because you need
actually, it would be, because if the way the workstation is set up is actually that because you are outside working on your computer, it has a bit of a roof to create shade, and it has a structure in your back.
Right.
So you kind of feel that you have a bit that boxed in, but then at the same time you're overlooking the garden and you're looking into the green. So that would work for me. I just don't like the feeling. An office chair for me doesn't give enough.
Yeah, you don't know what's happening behind you, right? It's like a little bit from the past. Like we feel like some animal creature can like whatever get onto us or something.
And or your boss is looking over your shoulder.
Or your boss. It's like the animal and creature. It's pretty much the same.
Which I don't have, so it's a strange thing, but still gives me that feeling. So I still try to find a place always where I kind of don't get that feeling. And then. Other places where I really like to work is there's a great beach club here where one of my passions is kite surfing, and then if you go out there, I find it horribly or I get really creative if you do like a session of kite surfing for an hour and a half, and then just jump in there and either do something on your phone or work on your computer. It's amazing. And they have these places where you can sit and look out on the water, and if it's during the week, there's hardly anyone there. But I think the more free you are to move around, the more creative you get, I think.
You're probably a big fan of MP and Christo's upcoming project. The office is not, we say office is a tool. They have working now on a project coming up this year. Office is where you park it. A cooperation with a van company. So basically you have the office in the van and you can just park wherever you want it. So, yeah, it's a nice.
Sounds pretty good.
It's a nice idea. Let's see how that's going to be with 2 kids.
I think office where you park it. What I really like now is that I have a couple of places that are really close to the house. So if you have to, and of course Germany is a lot bigger than the Netherlands, right? So in general, people are more used to traveling. But if I want to start working, I want to be able to start now. So that office is where you park it. I would like it, but then I would need a place pretty nearby.
Well, you don't have a lot of parking spaces in Amsterdam, so that's a bit of not making any sense here. But
growing though, they're putting more parking places underneath the ground. But no, and they're gonna ban all. Like it won't be 10 years, I think, from now, and then it will just be probably like government vehicles moving through the city, and that's it. Like you won't be allowed to park your vehicle in the city anymore. But yeah, I think increasingly companies will start looking, especially smaller companies that want to attract this talent that needs to feel autonomy. Like, okay, what is office? How do I create a place that's as efficient as possible? I think IoT will play a role. Like we see these companies now that are measuring air quality, all that kind of stuff. And I think it might well be that they have, a license to, or just a card that allows them into multiple spaces. Why would you want just one office to work? Ricardo Zemmler? He was one of the early ones, right? That said, I built 4 places in Sao Paulo where my managers can go to work, and I don't want to know where they are, just want them to deliver on what they need to deliver on. Yeah,
but that's again the topic of giving up hierarchy and ego, a little bit like the controlling, supervising boss. You were talking about the ideal, because you come from a COO perspective, so you always want things to be most efficiently, most productive. What is a good setup today? Like looking at the future of work on how you see it, for example, what would your setup be in terms of, what kind of tools do you use? How
to drive productivity?
What are your thoughts?
I think first of all, you want to be cloud-based. I think that's already a thing of the past. But people need to be able to open their laptop anywhere and then on their phone.
Same with a home office. I also think it's a thing of the past, but still, I think it's in a way it's a thing of the future because people still want it. Still fighting for it. So
and it's just. If you save probably for many people an hour, maybe even 2 hours of traveling, which you can put into productivity and doing laundry at the same time, right? But I think the technical setup is really important if you want to allow people, give people autonomy and allow them to work from anywhere. And that needs to work everywhere. So they need to be able to open their computer and be able to access anything that they need in order to be efficient. I think what we're increasingly seeing now is that people are you can use little tools in order to monitor how productive people are, right, and how happy they feel in the company. Like
what kind of tools?
These kind of office vibes, or there's this other heartbeats or something but office vibes we used in one of my companies, and it just sends out a weekly questionnaire, and it's anonymous about how happy they are, and they also benchmark it to other companies in the same industry, in the same country, or globally, which gives you nice feedback about, you know, how people are feeling, and what you can change. And what I found most interesting is the things that they actually want to have changed are super small. Like bringing something like that into the company is already, for many management teams, it's like, oh no, they're gonna
Give us some examples.
Well, the big fear is that they start complaining week after week, like I'm earning too little. But in general, you see that isn't really important. It's literally like there's you know, I'm one out of the 2 people in this company that always fills the dishwasher, for instance. You know, why isn't the rest of the company feeling more a part of that? Or if you did a company-wide presentation, they would literally, you become aware of how difficult communication is. So they would actually point out things that you said, and presentations in that company would always be in English, and I'm not a native speaker, but they would point out things that actually when you said it, you thought, you interpreted it different yourself, and their interpretation of it might actually have been a little bit offensive or a little bit, and then you see that those things are things that stick, and they're super easy to then, you know, walk up to someone, or well, in this case you couldn't walk up because it's anonymous, but they can also do it not anonymous, and then you could walk up to them, but you could also reply in the tool. So you could say, hey, I've read this comment, I'm replying to you, and I could show myself. So I could say, hey, you know, I'm Pete, I'm responding to this thing, and I could say, hey, I didn't mean it in that way, I meant it in this way. And then, yeah, generally they would then walk up to you and say, oh, thank you, I put a comment in there, and it's great that we solved this problem. And yeah, I think, and that's, so you see that technology is helping as well to overcome this communication, which I think is actually it's the most difficult thing in any company. And if you want to allow people to work from anywhere, that's increasingly difficult on top. But then having a simple tool like that makes it super easy, or more easy, to allow people to work from wherever they want. So yeah, and then what else is there? I think collaboration tools. I personally really love Rike. I don't know if you guys have experience with it, but
my team will probably hate me right now, as I should know. My team probably does. I mean, yeah, but yeah.
And then I think it's what you know.
But what is? Sorry, explain it to me. What's
Rike is a project management tool.
Yeah. As Asana and.
Yeah, but it's way more elaborate in my way. So you can actually manage bigger projects in it, and I think again there you see as well, like tooling becomes such a difficult thing because there's so many different tools.
Yeah.
And
how do you choose?
Well, and everybody has a personal preference. So I really like Rike, or someone else might really love Asana, and someone else might really love Wunderlist, right? But I personally really like Rike, and at the end you have to make a choice then, right? Like it's
and in the end, I'm wondering, like, I more come from let's put it easy, furniture way, and then of course there's differences, but a chair is always a chair. So I mean, some chairs are more comfortable for one's back, and the other ones are more comfortable for the other one's back. But I'm wondering, isn't a chair always a chair? So isn't a tool always a tool?
A tool is always a tool.
And sometimes I feel like we had this discussion going on the other day that, whatever name it, Asana, let's say Asana wasn't solving one of our issues, so we say, shouldn't we use another tool? So is that solving our problem, or
no,
is it?
No, it's not. I think a tool is only, a tool is only efficient if people use it, and often people blame the tool now instead of that we blame each other, or that we put it upon ourselves, that we say, hey, but actually I should, if it doesn't work in the tool, I can still walk up to you, right? And I can still say, hey, this is the issue, how are we going to solve it? And that is, I don't know. I've seen that in a few places. Like it becomes. It's also something that I hate with a background in operations. Like people wanna. There's always a group of people that wants to hide behind the rules. I like places where there is no rules. You know, everybody is responsible for making sure that you do what you need to do, whatever it takes. Just get it done.
More like a community vibe.
Yeah, like the tribe thing, or like the So yeah, you know, if you're responsible for making sure that campaigns run in a certain system, make sure it does. And if that means that you know, a client has to deliver certain specifications, yeah, that's of course a process where you can hide behind. But you can also just make sure that you get those specifications, whatever, and the campaign goes live. So
It's a bit like I mean, as a mom of two, I know you're a dad of two as well. Sometimes I find myself hiding, you know, but well, sometimes always hiding behind they're not making it through the night, they're cranky all the time, you know, all these kind of things. And then I had this discussion the other day with my friend, realizing that it's in 99% of the time, it's probably not even the kids, but it's just myself. So also that is hiding behind a little bit like, how can I say this? It's a different perspective on things, I guess.
Yeah, although, I think there you come on to what I mean with your kids it always starts with your responsibility. So there's nothing for you to actually really hide behind, which is something that your children make very obvious to you, right? So that's kind of what you're describing. Like it's, and they're extremely good at making you feel that pain. Like they're the champions in it, absolute champions, and they can actually do it. Like an employee would never be able to kind of make you feel the pain that your child can make you feel. Yeah, can put the salt in the wound. But the interesting thing is with your children, you always in the end come up with. You talk about it with your partner and it's like, okay, how are we going to solve this problem? Because if we don't solve it, it doesn't get solved and actually it gets worse. And that's what you would love in a company as well. So if people have a problem, you don't want employees, of course, that know how to put the salt in the wound like your children do.
But then why are we making, and I see that in work, like spaces as well, we put so much energy into making our homes nice and so much energy into putting, you know, stores, for example, you come in and you want this experience. Why are we not putting effort into making our offices that nice? Like you can feel the energy, you can you feel responsibility.
I think increasingly we are. I think we're really finding out that, and there's a growing body of research that's kind of proving the fact that if you don't do it, you just don't get the productivity out of your people, and in the end, that you would want. And in the end, it becomes a very simple trade-off, you know. It becomes so if you talk about creating these environments, actually on the intensive care here in Utrecht, which might be a nice place actually to visit sometime, in the hospital, they've created a garden, and then they've created the rooms around it. And a hospital bed, I think it costs €1,000 per night or something. So it's super expensive. They found out that if they create, with the garden they've created, which of course, and the setup they've created, which of course costs a lot of money, people leave the intensive care generally 2 days quicker.
Wow.
So, and that's the same for office buildings, right? People are increasingly recognizing, like you were saying before, it's really good to put plants in your office because people feel more at home. I even think it calms them down in a way. It also changes the atmosphere in the office. Generally, it improves it. And so we are moving there, I think, very rapidly. And you even see that the big corporates in the Netherlands are building offices that are really tailored towards making people feel at home and as productive as possible. Maybe not at home, but at least make them feel productive. Because as you said before as well, home is not necessarily the most productive place, right? But people are increasingly creating places where you can be productive. And I mean, look at the Facebooks and the Googles; they're the easy examples, right? If you go into, it's just it's almost like a
now
play
they're
factory.
taking it further, right? We just, Google is building this massive, and I know a lot of, we live, for example, we were talking about we work before we live, it's all one big, the community idea is, and the we live, we work, we do everything together, it's going bigger and bigger and bigger. How do you, and I know we were talking about tools to measure before, because I know that's something that you as a COO or as a CFO, you would you would say, okay, plans is nice, it costs a lot of things, but how do I know my people are more happy, or how do I know they stay longer, how do I know they work more efficiently? What are tools, what are good numbers and good tools to measure this, also in terms of costs and investments? And
it's a good question. I don't know.
Do you just go by your intuition, by your?
Well, not when you're looking for a tool. Like if you're looking for your next project management tool, you would generally look at a number of tools and then say, okay, which one suits my goal the best? And I think generally it makes sense to set up a small checklist, like, okay, this and this and this and this is important for me, and which tool then rates highest on those checks. And I think that can go for any tool. So if you talk about the Office Vibes tool that we used to work with, we had another tool before, but at some point that one turned out to be actually quite light on. It would just send out a single question every week, where the new tool actually sent out a bit more of a structured questionnaire every week, which it would flip around as well, but it just gave more insight. And I think that was actually poor performance on our behalf. We should have just beforehand said, okay, what's the checklist? What are we rating the tool on? And then let's implement that one. I'm actually not sure whether there is how you can, and budget can be one of them, right? So if you're looking for a project management tool, what's the budget that we have, and make sure you stay within. I'm not sure if there's tools that you can use to kind of measure the productivity increase when you put plans in your office. Yeah, no, I think that's really quite hard. And as we've also touched on already in this interview, I also think if it's about the office and how productive people are there, it's a different question, because some people might just feel productive there anyway, and some people don't. But I'm not sure whether that is available today. I think what is a simple thing is how often are people getting sick, right? And that's something that you can measure easily. So, and whether there's a change if you try to change the environment where you are in. And I mean, definitely research is proving that if you put people in a nice environment, they get sick less often, they feel less depressed, etc. So they're more motivated and more productive.
I saw that I went quickly on the 161 platform page, and the opening sentence was, one size
does not fit all.
Does not fit all, and that's actually what I love about Workspace too, because everyone's talking about we want open space, but also there, one size fits nobody. It just doesn't make any sense. And also, I'm saying it because it's proven that once you put everyone in open office, now you think you have a very modern future workplace. But numbers show that actually the amount of people getting ill is raising, going up instead of going down, because people feel really looked at, packed, crowded, busy. They have no quiet zones, no time to step back.
I think Google is moving away from them as well again, right? So they're actually moving away from these public workspaces. Yeah, there is no one size fits all.
Yeah,
and I think that's also where I began. that if that is the realization for everybody, then you can allow that to happen as long as you have very clear agreements with each other. What's the outcome? You know, what are your deliverables for the week? And if someone is good at formulating those deliverables and delivers on them, what would you care whether that person sits on an island on the moon or in the office? And as long as that gets done. And I think it's a play between your people to challenge each other to do a little bit more every week, to become more efficient. And if you can see that line increasing, I don't see whether you would want people to really sit in an office or sit wherever they want. They need to. So if you see that line, it's fine, and then they should take charge of making sure that if they need someone from someone else, or if they need a brainstorm session that lasts half a day, that they meet somewhere to do that. But again, I wouldn't mind if that's in the office or somewhere else. I really don't care.
Where do you, because you've had quite a rough last year, you took a bit of time to calm down. Where's this year, like, are you going to continue a bit freelancing and the other idea that you're following, or where's your personal journey going to?
Well, ideally, I would just focus on my new company.
Yeah.
But this one will.
Is it like, what does the new company do? Like.
Yeah,
we haven't talked about that.
No, we haven't talked about it. I'll show you after the video is done. But what we're seeing and where Netherlands is kind of front runner in the world is this no ownership of economy. So people here are, if you see the bicycles going through town, for instance, with the blue front tire, they're renting that bicycle. So they're paying a monthly subscription. And then whenever something is wrong with the bike, they just call the service, they come by, they swap the bike. So it's called swap bike, literally. And you always have a working bicycle. They're doing that with bicycles, with washing machines. Actually, there's now a friend of mine is testing with the principle where you're going to pay per clean wash that you did in your washing machine. So they're connecting the washing machine, or the laundry machine, I should say, to the internet. And then you're no longer buying the washing machine. No, per laundry that you're doing, it ticks.
Per laundry, or also per the stains that get out?
Well, that could be the next step, right? And then if you have kids, you're going to pay a lot for all the stains. But I think that's amazing. So we're moving towards a place where, you know, everything is a license model. And what I'm doing is I'm setting up a license model for buggies, for strollers.
Nice.
And what I found out is that we were, funny enough, already talking about strollers before, but is that people buy strollers for 2.5 years, then they exchange it for a buggy.
Yes.
And then the buggy goes for another 1.5 years.
Yes.
There's a lot of rest value in these strollers as well.
You don't have to explain. I bought it already. No, I'm joking.
But it's let's say this, we researched it, or I researched it. It's a perfect item to set up a lease model for. So instead of, I mean, people often pay €1,000, maybe even €1,500 for a stroller. Makes no sense, because after 2.5 years, the rest value in that thing is still a lot.
Yeah, I just sold it for almost the same price.
Someone else could still use it. So now, instead of doing that, we're just going to give a usage fee. People get the stroller. Whenever there's something wrong with it, they can call us, we fix it. And the other thing is, space is a big problem in Amsterdam and many other cities around the world. And now you remember as well, you had to you buy the carry cart and the seat at the same time. The one thing is always laying there, it takes up a lot of volume. In this case, you just get what you need, and then after 6 months, when the kid can no longer lay in the little carry cart, you through the app you say, send me the next phase.
Right.
You get that one, you send the other one back, and then actually this stroller is a really nice one because it's the only one in the world that can also become a buggy. So from 0 to 4 years old, you can basically through a license model, and then in the end you just send the whole thing back.
What stroller is it, or is it like you're
Yeah.
constructing it right now,
No,
or is it
no,
like a brand that exists?
The brand exists. I think they're extremely cool brand. They're called Green Tom.
Okay.
Stands for Green Tomorrow.
Okay.
And they're the only circular stroller as well. So it's made completely from recycled plastics. This is the frame. You can take this one out and then you can put the buggy frame in. And then in this circle, you can pull this out and then you can put the bed underneath. And these guys are actually the only ones who also have all the mattresses are still made with, I think we call it PVC, which is a really intense chemical.
Yeah.
They're the only ones who
Free.
have 100% natural mattress inside.
And this is all made from recycled
Yeah, it's all plastic.
plastic.
It's 99% recyclable because they're not able to say 100% because we cannot recycle, I think this, the tire and the bolts that are inside are not from recycled material. That's it. And basically they're moving to an ID where they're saying you just so you can either buy it from them still, or then I'm setting up the lease platform. If you would buy it, you would buy 7 kilos of plastic, and they're trying to move towards a model where that plastic can just stay with you throughout the rest of your life. So all the way in the end, it could, it could become a bicycle next, and it can become whatever. It could maybe become a bed frame, etc., etc. And so you could, through the lease platform in that case, just pay your monthly subscription, and then when the kid is done with it, with 4 years of age, you send it back. They create the next product out of it, and we again lease it out to someone.
Yeah,
and so
amazing.
It becomes a very circular thing.
I love it, even especially with the first child and the second child. We only had 2 years in between, but I found that I had for example, the Jewel stroller. We were talking about it. It's a Dutch product as well, for our daughter. And then 2 years later, it was amazing quality, but they had a new model which had, for example, a bigger basket, which I missed with the first stroller.
Yeah.
So it would have been perfect to,
So you get all the
one.
upgrades. So in this case, after your first child, you send it back. Actually, you stop the contract. And then when you get your next child, you can reactivate the contract, and you can...
It's a bit like Adobe. So we just sorry to interrupt you. Before we had to buy it for like thousands of euro, and now you just upgrade it on a cloud-based monthly thing. Like you need more or less. You just configure it.
Yeah, and in this case, you pay 1,000 euros or 15 euros upfront. Where in this case, you will just pay a small monthly subscription, so you don't have the out-of-pocket before you start. You can just spread it out over all the months.
I love it. Let me know when you want to expand to Germany.
Should be sometime by the end of this year, I guess.
So what is the plan for this year?
Plan is now to launch. Actually, I'm still finalizing the deal. But the plan is first to launch, and that should be in March. Because funny enough, even though people get kids throughout the year, more strollers are being sold in spring.
Okay.
So I guess when kids get born in winter, people don't like to walk, so they say, okay, let's postpone buying a stroller a little bit until springtime. So we want to launch before spring. And then we have a very clear target of what we want to accomplish in the Netherlands in order to call it a success. And then we're going to look at other markets to roll out.
Nice.
Yeah.
Well, all our fingers crossed.
Yeah. So ideally, I'd spend 100% of my time there.
Yeah.
But it will depend a little bit on. I also have a family. So and. I was fortunate enough in all my previous companies that they were funded in such a way that I could just do that for 100% of the time. I can imagine that in this case I will spend a little bit of time doing some freelance work. And actually, again, there as well, I noticed that I enjoy it, being in multiple places, in multiple organizations, and it kind of also makes you productive.
Would you prefer having an investor, or would you prefer doing it on your own?
It's a difficult question. I think I would. It's actually a simpler answer. It needs some funding, and I'm not funding it myself. So I'm working with an investor, and actually, the ones that I'm talking to, it's a very good relationship.
Yeah.
I think and they've already contributed quite substantially to the project. And I think in that sense, it's very nice to work with an investor. Like they can. In this case, I'm doing it on my own, so they can challenge you a bit and they can push you a bit. I think there's good and bad in both, like working with an investor or bootstrapping something yourself. Yeah, as in everything. Yeah, I like to work with people, so I'm happy doing it in an investor relationship.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much.
Yeah, you're welcome.
It was super interesting. Is there something we missed talking about?
Well, maybe what the future workplace will look like for this company.
No, not at all. Because I mean, those are the topics, right? Yeah. We're talking about where will people work in the future.
Yeah, I think there's one interesting which we haven't. Oh, but it's still running. Of course, there's one interesting that we missed, and that is at my last company, which is Effect.ai. We were building this. So if you're talking about the future of work, we were building this platform, basically a gig platform, right? Where people come and they perform a task and then they get paid for the single task. So you're seeing that increasingly this platform economy is growing, which is, take Tesla as an example. Tesla is filming the roads everywhere because they want to put the first autonomous car on the road, right? And then they're taking snapshots out of those videos, and those snapshots they put on this platform. And then there's a person in India or Africa, so they put the picture on the platform, and then they say, classify this picture for me, so label it, so it's data labeling. So tell me, where's the road? Where's a tree in the picture? Where are the people in the picture? Where are the road signs? So they want all this stuff labeled. So from a unlabeled picture, they go to a labeled picture, and then that data set they feed into their AIs, into their algorithms, so that it gets trained. It gets increasingly better at saying, okay, that's a traffic light, that's a pedestrian road, whatever. And they're using these platforms increasingly to kind of put that work on, and it's paid, in my opinion, very unfairly. And if you read within all the communities, they're saying the same thing. But for instance, in the US, it's now so bad in terms of what people are or what a large part of the people are earning, that they're not having one job, but they're having two jobs, sometimes three jobs. And then in between jobs, when they're sitting in the bus or public transport or whatever, they're on their mobile phone executing these jobs on a platform, making a few cents on the side. And actually, Amazon has the biggest platform, which is called Amazon Mechanical Turk. And research has shown that I think 80 or up to 90% of people, they're not even able to earn minimum wage in the US per hour when they're doing that. So it's pay on it is very low, but I think these platforms are here to stay. I just think that we need to move to a different way of distributing the income to the people that are doing these tasks. So that's what we were trying with Effect, is to kind of build a platform where people would get a fairer payment for what they were doing on for the jobs that they were doing on this platform. And it's interesting that on the one hand side, something that's super positive about it is that now anyone with internet access can can work basically on these platforms. So that's why you see that a big community in India, Indonesia, and Africa, they are working on these platforms, making for their countries often quite an okay wage. Too often too little, but they have access to work which otherwise they wouldn't have. But it's I don't agree with the fact that we found another way to kind of get work done even cheaper than we already could before. So that's one that we haven't really talked about. But I think if we talk about the future of work, I think those platforms are really here to stay. I think we need to find another way, though, to kind of make sure that the people that are working on those platforms get paid. Because actually, you had the Uber discussion a couple of years ago, right? Whether they are employer or not an employer towards the cab drivers in the States. I think the outcome was that they are not an employer. The same goes for Amazon in this case. So Amazon is only provider of the platform, but they're not an employer of those people. And so actually these people are all self-employed, which means that minimum wage is, it's not applicable because they don't have an employer. I don't understand that. We need to take better care of those kind of things as a community.
I was going to say, it's a bit of the community idea, right? That also makes up that.
Yeah, but it's also David versus Goliath, I think, as well, right? Like you see that a couple of corporates have become so powerful that they can do that. Even though you see that the people in that community that are doing the work, they're asking for better pay and better circumstances. I think the whole community, so also the companies that put the work on there, have a responsibility to kind of increase the wages to something that's more fair. And then you see Amazon kind of taking to both sides as well, right? So they take a bit from the worker and they take a bit from the company that puts it on there. So these large corporations are sucking up a lot of the revenue. Where Amazon is now the wealthiest company in the world, and the people on it are suffering and increasingly suffering.
Yeah, I mean now we're talking about hierarchies in a different term, because we're talking about Amazon. I mean, I don't want to throw Nestle, for example, like taking the water from where it shouldn't be taking and bottling it up, and that's a whole different story.
Yeah, so we have the very positive trend, and it's now this is actually more of it's a negative trend, right? I think people that are in an unfortunate position, actually they get more unfortunate at the moment, and that gap, many people are talking about it, is growing everywhere. So you see on this, on the side of really the classified knowledge work, you see that we're thinking more and more about what's the environment that you should put those people in so that they are as productive as they can be. But then there is, a far larger workforce that is still doing work, whether if they're still doing that in 20 years, maybe also debatable, but they're now still doing it, and their work environment is becoming increasingly bad. I would say it's not. If you hear if you read the articles about the people that are working in the Amazon packaging centers, for instance, it's insane, right? What they need to deliver.
In the end, it's like when you follow back a product, when you follow back our iPhones that we carry with us all the day long,
true.
We'll go to a nice store where we buy it. We want the perfect surrounding, the perfect customer care or whatever. And once you follow back the chain, like where the pieces come from, it gets worse and worse and worse and worse. So this is a very, I'm well aware of the topics we're talking about, the whole workspace environment. Those are very, in my eyes, luxurious questions to raise in a way, because
definitely
we are
for
at
the
a point,
happy few, right?
It's for absolutely.
And you know, what I really like, we were talking about the green tone before, is that these guys, they offer a solution where you don't have to pay extra for it. I think that's something that that's definitely a trend that we're going to see. Like, you're talking about the awareness of you're using an iPhone, and people actually, they don't, an iPhone is a super expensive machine, of course, but they're not willing to pay extra to make sure that the people that are putting the iPhone together also have a nice life. Mm-hmm. And I think we're moving to a situation where actually we no longer have to. So it's the, you know, we as a community make sure that everybody in the value chain gets off okay, you know, and is able to come by. And what we see still is that, you know, green energy, all those kind of things, people are now buying into green energy because it's not more expensive anymore than normal energy. Actually, it's becoming cheaper than normal energy. Mm. And I think we need that everywhere. So we need conscious products, but they shouldn't be more expensive than...
But you always need people to go first and invest first. Because
first movers we need, and they will pay the premium, definitely. Mm. Of course, there will be products where it has such a hype factor that people will still be willing to pay that premium. But I think in general, you know, we should have more sustainable products that are sustainable all through the value chain, that are not more expensive than other products, like the iPhone. Not sure if I'm allowed to mention the iPhone.
Absolutely. This is, as I said before, thank you so much.
Yeah, you're very welcome.
Appreciate your time, especially in the moment when you have, like, you know, very serious, very shortly upcoming, soon upcoming project to launch. Mm-hmm. Also, thank you for raising questions that get me thinking right now.
Okay.
No, I mean, in a good way.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for your time.
Yeah, it might be an interesting one, actually, to see if you can shed a light on that one at some point, although it's maybe not the key focus of what you guys are interested in at the moment.
This is how also how the podcast with Christoph started. It is this is a journey. This is we don't know where this is going. The whole workspace topic. In the beginning, I thought it was about, you know, furniture, like literally. I think now it's about community, about relationship. But I also think that is a bit short. It's really on things I can't really grab yet. It's something maybe we need to step a bit back and work more with our intuition, like our inner, like, I don't know. Let's see. So it's a journey. Yeah, we'll find out.
Yeah, well, it's great, and it is about the journey, right?
Yeah, I mean, it is about the journey.
So yeah, and I think you've set out on a very nice journey. And thank you for allowing me onto your platform.
Well, thank you for having us here at your house.
You're welcome.
Spending your time with us.
You're very welcome.